biggest education controversy this year is over something called Common Core. Its supporters say it's just a single common standard that tells parents in every state this is what your kid ought to know. Some union teachers are very upset about this.
These standards are crippling. They are crippling our students' education and their joy of learning, because with Common Core standards, they must constantly struggle and struggle to push themselves in levels that are not developmentally appropriate.
The kids must push themselves beyond what's appropriate. No, say Common Core supporters, these standards are appropriate and better. And now we'll have a way to measure whether kids learn what they need to learn, when they need to learn it.
Life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of schools. That's where the Common Core state standards come in.
What does Common Core mean for your kids? Well, here's a sample math problem.
Compose and decompose numbers from 11 to 19 into 10 ones and some further ones by using objects or drawings, and record each composition.
That's my producer, Ricky Ratliff, right outside the studio, asking people to solve a Common Core math problem.
10 plus 8. Understand that these numbers are composed of 10 ones and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Seem complex? No kidding. And yet that is a problem for kindergarten students, 5- and 6-year-olds. Seems crazy to me. And yet Robert Pondicio of the Fordham Institute says Common Core is a good thing. It'll help American kids compete. Joy Pullman, education researcher for the Heartland Institute, says no, Common Core is just more central planning, and that has failed again and again. Robert, you are taking from her and from more people now heat for supporting Common Core. You're from a conservative group which usually supports market competition. Common Core? Why?
You have to remember what led us to this point, okay? Not that long ago, we had 50 different states, 50 different standards, 50 different tests. And what we saw was a progressive dumbing down. I saw in my own school in the South Bronx, not far from this, where we're sitting right now, kids who were counting on their fingers. And then suddenly they'd get the test results back, and they were level 3, level 4, meaning they were proficient, they were above proficient. I knew as a teacher that they were not as good as the test was saying, but that bar just kept getting lower
George
and
Bush's
lower.
No Child Left Behind, and so we better lower the standards so we don't leave them behind.
Right. There was no reason for a state not to do exactly that, right? In other words, if I had to prove that my kid was proficient, but I get to set the bar, what would you do? You set the bar really, really low. So you may not like Common Core, but let's remember what brought us to this point.
All right, but now we have central planning. Why is that good?
I'm not sure I agree with it as central planning. Look, I'll be completely honest with you. If one of the criticisms of Common Core is that you had 41 states, racing to the trough, as it were, to get the federal money. Sure, that's a legitimate criticism. And honestly, I wish it hadn't happened. But you can't unring a bell,
It's really
John.
easy for Robert to go here and sell how great this would have been had it been done in a non-coerced fashion, but it was done in a coerced fashion. And in fact, the folks who wrote Common Core asked the federal government to come in and force all the states to do it.
And some states are now saying, oh, we were in, but now we want to be out. Indiana, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Missouri, Louisiana. Sure. You're losing this war.
Well, yes and no. Here's what I know. Right now in America, there's a lot of professional development going on. The new thing is going to come into the classroom, and the principal is going to tell Miss Nelson, who's been teaching for 20 years, here's how you're going to do it now. And Miss Nelson is going to smile, and she's going to say, thank you, Mr. Principal. She's going to shut her door, and she's going to do what she always does because she's a good teacher and knows what works for kids. Now, if her principal can't get Miss Nelson to change practice, I don't think Barack Obama is going to have a much better chance.
Well, actually, because the problem is that Common Core came in with a whole package of things, and that requires things to get into the classroom with the teachers. So along with Common Core, the federal government required states to make those tests matter for a teacher's job performance. So Miss Nelson can't shut her door anymore. Yeah. She can't say, get out of my classroom, federal government, because the feds have gone to the states and said, ooh, you like your education money, don't you? Would be a shame if something happened to it. And so all the states say, even Indiana, where I live, which tried to get rid of Common Core, we basically have Common Core Light because the feds are the piper and they're calling the tunes.
So let's just take a look at what some of the Common Core experience will be like. Here's a question some first graders will get under the standards.
Okay, kids, class is in session.
What is 32 minus 12? 20, right? You just subtract. But not under the new Common Core method.
Why are they going through this backwards method here?
This man, who trained in nuclear engineering, couldn't understand it.
I don't understand.
He wasn't alone.
This is how you arrive at the answer, my friend.
That's insane. That's so many steps.
Why does it need to be so complicated? Why are you adding things when you're trying to subtract?
We gave people questions for third graders. They got even more confused.
Add 26 plus 17 by breaking apart numbers to make a 10. Use a number that adds with the 6 in 26 to make a 10. Since 6 plus 4 equals 10, use 4.
What?
We gave the engineer another shot.
You're looking lost?
Yes, why would you break that down that way? I think that's literally 4 steps more than you need to get the same result.
Make sense?
No, that's ridiculous.
Now I know why he's having trouble in math, of which I had to pay for math tutors.
Robert, a lot of people are saying, yeah, my kid doesn't like math anymore.
Yeah. Well, but what I would say is that's not Common Core. I mean, when I was teaching 5th grade in the South Bronx, I saw equations like that in my everyday math textbook. That's one of the misconceptions people have. Every day I go on Facebook or Twitter and I see homework assignments and people say, look, that's Common Core. This has been around for a long time. Common Core done well.
These are questions that are part of the curriculum in this state and some others.
Well, that's another issue altogether. If you're talking about...
No, it's not, John. It's not another issue altogether. If you look at Common Core, what it does, the exact text of it says to do exactly what Ricky was out there doing. It tells kids from 1st through 3rd grade, you have to play all these number games before we get to what you call the standard algorithm,
But
stacking the
it must be
numbers.
a better way to learn. These aren't idiots pushing it.
Oh, that's right. I mean, well...
If Common Core goes away tomorrow, if Joy gets away, we're still going to have those horrible international comparisons. So you want to make Common Core go away, fine. What are you going to replace it with?
Why not have choice be the standard? Parents would quickly figure out which schools taught well. They'd pick their tests.
Look, I'm a big choice advocate, John, but it makes me a little bit
sound
nervous.
like it.
No, well, it makes me nervous because you can have choice in certain things, and there's a low threshold, there's a low price to pay. If somebody chooses badly, you don't get a second choice at your education.
Well,
so
they're getting no good choice now. They're stuck in a monopoly.
Okay, so where's the conflict between saying we want choice, but everybody, just like everybody who builds a car, has to build a car to a certain safety standard. But if you want to run a school, there's certain conditions you have to meet.
On the street, we only found one person who liked the new standards.
The concept behind it is a really good idea.
This is a teacher who's been teaching Common Core.
Once people get comfortable with it, I think people aren't going to even remember the way it used to be.
Can you imagine why they might be confused and frustrated?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the teacher tried to explain another kindergarten problem using Common Core standards.
The subtraction sentence would be 7 minus 4. There's 3 left. But if you need one that relates to it, it would be this one because it has all the same numbers.
I don't understand, though. We just said subtraction sentence, but you're showing me addition.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Watching the debate over Common Core, you'd think this proposed reform is something new and unique, but it's not. As Andrew Ferguson points out in this Weekly Standard cover story, Common Core happened just 8 years after President George W. Bush and Ted Kennedy got together to give us another revolutionary approach to learning, No Child Left Behind.
In that box is the bill. I don't intend to read it all.
He signed it without reading it, and the crowd cheered. But the law promise sounds familiar.
In return for federal dollars, design accountability systems.
No Child Left Behind came just 8 years after President Clinton thought of Goals 2000, a nationwide school reform that would
set world-class education standards.
The crowd applauded that too. But Goals 2000 was a reworking of a school reform plan called America 2000, pushed by the first President Bush.
Our national education strategy.
He said it was revolutionary.
To make America all that it can be.
The president said he wanted to be called the education president, and the cameras followed him into a classroom.
What's your name?
Doesn't this look familiar too? Only 7 years before President Bush's national education strategy, President Reagan released something similar.
A national campaign to restore excellence in American education.
I wonder why that was needed. Didn't President Carter restore excellence with his national program?
It will open up for the first time some very substantial benefits for our country.
Carter created the Federal Department of Education, which promised to fix America's education problem.
I'm determined that we're going to cut out unnecessary forms, applications, red tape, regulations that have been an obstacle in the past.
Please, for 40 years, the education bureaucrats have added unnecessary forms, applications, and red tape. Education reform is like an itch that reformers just can't scratch. And why should they? Because a new education reform brings them money. And since the reforms never work, the last reform creates the need for more reform and more money. America now spends 3 times what we spent when Jimmy Carter fixed the problem by creating the Department of Education. Triple the money, no improvement. Well, improvement for professional education researchers. As money pours in from the government and foundations, an army of these educrats found work as lobbyists, psychologists, education theorists at grad schools of education, foundations, and government education departments. So great a mass of these specialists cannot be kept idle. They will find something to do. And so, after 40 years of failed reforms, they brought us another Common Core.